Hi, I'm David Hamburger, and welcome to this last lesson in my 6-part series on playing fingerstyle blues in E. In the last lesson, we basically wrapped things up with how to play through an entire 12-bar blues, but in this lesson I want to show you one of my favorite ideas for how to make your playing really feel like it has momentum and flow. And it's a really simple idea. The idea is basically not to play licks that start on or after the downbeat, but to play licks that lead into the downbeat. It's as simple as the difference between playing a lick that starts after the downbeat and one that starts before. And so we're going to go through all 3 chords of a 12-bar blues in this lesson, and I'll show you how to take one basic lick and use it to lead into an E chord, into an A chord, and into a B chord, and how to put that all together. The thing about this idea is, it applies to electric blues playing, fingerstyle blues playing, swing and jazz playing, like anything where you're improvising. And it's a way to organize your playing so that instead of sounding like you're being chased around the room by the chord progression, it feels like you're sort of leading the chords, leading the way through the chords, or really kind of like, sort of initiating things, making things happen rather than reacting to what's happening in the chord progression. So it's a really important idea, I think, and it could really help your playing. So let's actually look at it. So we're going to be doing a blues in E, and so the lick we're going to play is something really simple, just to illustrate the idea, and it's just this. Just those 3 notes, right? Open second string, 2nd fret on the 2nd string, open high string, and it falls on the and of 3. So 1 and 2 and, well, actually it's a triplet, it falls right on 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and all right? And each time we play that, we're going to then land on the next measure with whatever chord it is we're headed to. So in this case, at the beginning, we're going to E7. So we're going to have 1, we're going to have 4 and 1 and 2, 3, 4, like that. So once you've played this phrase, which some people would call a pickup phrase because it's a pickup into the next downbeat, we're going to grab the thumb on the low string. You can grab this. It's an E7 chord, but we're coming into it from a half step below. So the chord is 4th fret, 3rd fret, 4th fret on the top 3 strings. But you're going to pinch here 1 fret down at 3rd, 2nd, and 3rd, and the thumb. So thumb and then index, middle, and ring are going to grab the top 3 strings. So 1 and 2, 3, 4. So you want to just try that a few times until you can do that in time. 1, 2, 3. And once that's cool, the next thing to do is to loop it so that you continue to play the bass. Because if you're just playing the fingers, that's not really too tricky once you know the lick. But if you've already got the bass going, you have to figure out where does the lick fall over the bass. And it falls with the 4th beat of the measure, or basically the 4th time that you're hitting with the thumb. So 1, if you're doing this, 2, 3, 4, new measure, 1, 2, 3, pinch, and that gets you back in. So on the 4th beat, you're going to pinch thumb and middle finger, and then follow up with the rest of the lick. So 4 and so if you can do that, you might just practice the pinch and then work backwards from the beginning of that measure. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1 and 2 and 3. And then you can loop the whole thing. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3. So when you've done that about a billion times, it'll really have sunk in, and you'll be able to just grab that when you're in the middle of playing the bass, and you can come in with that lick. And what's great about that is then, if you're on the E, and you want to go to the A chord, it's the same coordination to get into an A chord, because you're coming from E, 1, 2, 3, 4, and but now the thumb goes to the 5th string, and you grab the top part of an A7 chord with a bar at the 2nd fret on the top 3 strings, because you're going to pinch thumb plus index, middle, and ring, and then put down your ring finger on the 3rd fret to complete the A7 chord. So that's 1 and 2 and 3. So you could practice like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2. Right? Or you can keep the bass going, which is really what I should have done. You definitely start back on E though. 1, 2, 3. Now it also helps to be able to get to that lick when you're already on A with the thumb. So you could also loop it like that. So 1, 2. So 1, 2, 3. 2, 3, 4, and which is the exact same coordination as looping it in E. Just you've got your thumb on the 5th string and you're playing an A7 chord instead of an E7 chord. So you want to be able to do it on both chords, and eventually you're going to want to be able to go between chords. So 2, 3. So at the end of every measure, you're switching from chord to chord, because that's the kind of fluency you want to ultimately have. So that's E and A. Now we can also use the same phrase to get into a B7 chord. 1, 2, 3. So just start with just the lick into B. So we've got 2nd fret, 1st fret, 2nd fret, open, 2nd fret, going up from the 5th to the 1st string. And so we can grab on the downbeat thumb and then index, middle, ring, and then a triplet figure on top. 1 and 2 and 3, and so it's a B7 lick. 1 and 2 and 3, and in the 4th lesson in this series, I walked through a couple of B7 licks. So if you want some more detail on that, you can go back and check out the 4th video in this series and get a more in-depth look at that. But right now we just want to be able to walk up with our pickup phrase and then grab B7. And so to practice this one, you want to, when you're going into B7, you're always going to be coming from E, or 99% of the time, right? So you want to practice doing 1, 2, 3 on the low E string, and then just to practice it in a loop, go back to the E. One, 2, 3. And the reason for having these little practice routines is because really you want to be able to ultimately improvise when you're playing fingerstyle blues. And these kinds of licks involve a kind of thinking ahead a little bit. You've got to be thinking, well, I'm about to go to B7 and I want to play a lick that's going to take me in, but I'm on E right now. You have to practice those kind of reflexes. I had this professor when I was studying music in school, Bill Barron, this amazing musician, and he played the tenor saxophone. And he used to tell us, he had this sort of like low, kind of ruffly voice, and be like, nothing's going to come out of your horn on the bandstand that you didn't practice at home. And I was like, bandstand? I don't think I'm going to be standing on any bandstands anytime soon. But I knew what he meant, you know. And it's true, like if you don't work out these ideas, even if you're working on improvising, stuff is not going to just magically happen because you're in the middle of a song or you're playing for other people. Like the things you want to be able to improvise take a certain amount of, you know, you've got a certain amount of like mental chops. You've got to be able to think. And coordination. You've got to have a certain kind of ability to think ahead and think on your feet, and you have to practice that. You have to be able to get your hands, because you're kind of thinking ahead, but your hands are still back in the measure you're actually on. So anyway, that's why some specific examples about how to drill this stuff I think are useful. Because then you can swap in a different kind of lick besides this. You could have, you know, or, and either one of those could come right out of E, right? Or, so if you know in like the structural sort of general sense how to make a little pickup phrase go into a B7, then any lick you come up with that's the same rhythm, you can drop that in instead, and you're not stuck just playing the lick I happened to show you in this lesson. So that's how to get into E and into A and into B. So now let's put that to work by just playing through these examples and stringing them together into a 12-bar blues, which is another kind of way to look at things structurally. We've got one whole 12-bar blues to play. If you can do that, then you can start to mix and match the licks and the chord voicings and everything else. Okay, so you can see I basically strung together everything we've talked about. Here's the E. I'm just repeating stuff because it's an exercise in just getting this coordination together, which it takes a lot of coordination to play and say the word coordination. So I'm gonna have to work on that. And then we're going up to the A. And you have to drop the A voicing, and that can be a little noisy to repeat it. And then back to the E, and then up to the B7, and then here's this A lick, and into a turnaround. And that A lick, that sort of Hubert Sumlin style lick, and this turnaround are things that I went through in previous lessons. I think I went through the Hubert Sumlin lick in the lesson on licks in the turnarounds lesson. Both of those come from the lesson 4, I think, the turnarounds lesson. So anyway, that gives you an idea of how to piece this together. Like I said, I just think that idea of leading into the downbeat with a pickup phrase is really strong. So you can use those individual licks as a template for how to practice that and try to swap in some licks of your own. And then you can use this 12-bar blues as a kind of template where you don't have to do every lick as a pickup phrase. I mean, you can go elsewhere with it, and those ideas can come and go in a more musical way. But I think it's worth just taking a little time to work out the kind of mental and digital agility that it takes to make that happen. So that wraps this series. If you've got any questions about this lesson or any of the lessons in this series, please leave me a comment or a question below. I would love to hear what you thought of the series. If there are other things that you'd like to have me talk about or expand on from this lesson series, or things you think I missed, whatever, just drop me a line, let me know what you think. And thanks for watching. I'll be back with a new video about something else shortly.